Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. We are going to give it a couple of seconds because I know it takes a moment for folks to actually join the webinar, transition into. We love technology for that. So, as people are loading in, I'm going to say hello, greetings. I'm Sadie Uribe, the media producer for the Los Angeles Regional SBDC. The SBDC is a national program with over 1,000 locations across the country, helping to stimulate economic growth through business advising and development. The LASBDC offers no-cost services through funding provided by the U.S. Small Business Administration, SBA, and from the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. It's your tax dollars at work. The Los Angeles Regional SBDC network operates 7 service locations throughout Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. Our services are also offered virtually. We are here to help. We empower small business owners by offering tailored solutions through personalized one-on-one business advising, cutting-edge workshops, and comprehensive programs, all provided at no cost. We are dedicating to supporting your entrepreneurial journey every step of the way. Well, Lori, I am excited for today. It feels like a special day. It feels like a day starting in an R, not at a W, I'm gonna have to say.
Yep, it is. Every day is a special day. And by the way, the audience can tell me, are the kids back in school yet? I know right around this time you guys start chatting about want to get the kids back in school. So I don't know because I don't have any. So I'm not sure if that time's coming around the corner. But happy summer to everybody. If many of you are out on vacation. So I keep saying the ones that are joining me through this in the middle of summer, I just love you guys. Let's get started. We got a lot to go through today. Today is information packed, guys. It's a big information day. So, with we talking about information, August is right around the corner. Believe it or not, I got a full lineup on the webinars I'm offering this month. The usual ones you see, I decided to do the cash flow model again. Had a ton of people, I think it was like 55 people sign up, which was my test run on making that in more of a group setting with very little marketing behind it. And I said, okay, you guys want to hear this. I'm going to repeat it. So that's going to happen again. And then I just keep the sole prop and the charging customer sales tax because there's so much confusion on that. There's just really in great demand. So that's my lineup. As always, Sadie's on top of it. You can go in the chat to get all of those links. And as you know, I have the cash flow model. I am going to be bringing up a company audit from a CFO perspective. That's going to come, I'm not sure what, because I'm repeating the cash flow, but it'll come after that. And we got the Ask an Expert series. I know many of you are already saying, when's it starting? When it's starting? Let's say tentatively September, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And we're going to delve down into topics just like today, where we get to sample a topic. We're going to go deep into the topics in that series. So, upcoming webinars, I got the full August lineup, but let me tell you about these two. On August 6th, Ashley Arnold's coming on. You're going to love her story. She makes these wonderful desserts, and her company's called Lady Cakes. Fascinating how she got into it. But I started working with her because she took one of my financial webinars and through the whole process of doing the financial model, learned what most people learn. I'm not charging enough. And she has come to such an understanding in finance with her not having a finance background. It's just incredible. And she's making the changes within her company. She's really out there doing it. And I talked her into, okay, I talked her into it. We won't tell her when she's on the show. We won't say we know that already. But she was a little shy coming on the show, but she agreed to do so. And then the following week, we got Mike Wax. He's got this company called Crazy Train. Another fascinating story. One of those where, no, what I'm doing today was not what I ever thought I would be doing, but it came out of this. That's the story that you get to hear when you come in when Mike's on. Lori's Corner. Okay, Lori's Corners, as always, in talking about something kind of interesting, but I'll explain what I mean. My title for Lori's Corner today is Understanding What Agency Oversees What Regulations and How They Interact. This is a common theme that I see every week during my consulting sessions. You guys know I always talk about what I'm seeing, where people are getting stubbed up, where the problems are. And it is in many areas, but the one I want to speak about today is understanding when you create a legal structure or have a sole prop. So I'm talking about an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corp, a legal structure. How that is organized and where that is organized at in reference to taxation. So, what I explain to people all the time is you want to see a column dividing two headings. Over on one side is legal structures, over on another side is IRS and tax. These are completely two associations. They're grouped together in a lot of entrepreneurs' minds, and they don't realize that they're completely different. And what happens is when you form an LLC, let's just use an LLC for example, because a lot of you are familiar with that. That is organized by state statute. That's where you have to know a little bit about our legal system. We're a constitutional republic, meaning each state has its own rules, its own ability, and then you got the federal government that oversees certain laws. But LLCs and business entities are registered in the state. And so when you talk about how you're registered and who oversees that, that is within the state. Now, when you discuss how it is taxed, that's the IRS. This is why you can structurally form an LLC and it's either taxed as an LLC, which is taxed the same way as a sole prop, or you choose to file a document with the IRS and then it is taxed as an S corp. Once again, complete division. Now, the reason I want to bring this up is something I'm calling staying in your own lane, and many people are not. Now, this is not saying anything against CPAs or lawyers because some people do understand both, but this is what I'm getting week in, week out, and that's why I'm doing a shout out to you guys. I have people who go to a CPA who understands the taxation part. I may say, because your net income's a certain amount, it would benefit you to be taxed as an S corp. That's their area. They understand that. But I have seen some go as far as trying to then set up the legal documents without the proper information and set them up incorrectly. People go to a lawyer and they get information about the legal structure, but then they're shocked when they find out what they have to do from a tax perspective. So, what you guys have to understand is these are completely two different government regulations. They have two different impacts. How you're structured legally impacts you in a risk analysis, filing documents, maintaining those documents. How you are then taxed is basically in your tax bracket and how much taxes you're going to pay and what you're taxed on. So when you're forming a legal structure or considering it, you have to take it onto yourself to do the due diligence to understand both. Because when we talk about someone like LegalZoom or all the different companies that file the documents for you, please note that these are not a lawyer. These are not a tax person. They are not providing you advice. They're just an aggregator of the documents, the forms, and filing them on your behalf. So many people are playing different roles. I feel very sad to the entrepreneurs that don't understand this and go down wrong roads, which I see on a daily basis. Any questions? Watch my webinar, reach out to me, make sure you know what you're doing before you make these decisions. Okay. So staying in your own lane means that you, the entrepreneur, has to own the responsibility of asking the right questions, not only asking the right questions, but asking them to the right individuals. That's Lori's Corner for today. Let's get started with the excitement for today. Ramin Ramhormozi is an e-commerce strategist with over 25 years of experience helping entrepreneurs launch, operate, and grow successful online businesses. His background includes managing online retail operations, developing innovative e-commerce software solutions, and providing strategic consulting to companies across various industries. Ramin is especially passionate about guiding emerging e commerce entrepreneurs and showing them how to leverage AI to build and scale their businesses more effectively. Ramin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lori. Maybe I turned my camera on a little too soon there.
No,
Maybe I should have
oh,
said,
there's no
yes.
such thing as turning the camera on too soon.
Well,
You
well,
know,
thank you.
you're a new guest on the show. We're very excited to have you. And just reading the introduction, I know, because I know my audience well, many ears have perked up in that. So I can't wait to get into the details of it. But we want to get
Okay.
to know you first.
All
So
right.
I know, many of the people watch this show all the time. They know I say, "Well, did you know you want to when you were in high school?" Well, I could say this is probably going to be a no if I ask this question. Did you know you wanted to get involved in AI when you were in high school?
There'd be a no on the AI, but I did know that I wanted to be in business. I was reading business books when I was 12, 13 years old. Anything I can get my hands on, Fortune magazine. I wanted to start my own business. I even thought, well, what do I need to go to college for? I just wanted, but I did go. Parents would not allow that. But I always wanted to run my own business, but I knew I needed to learn how business worked. So I went off and worked in a corporation for a while and really studied and understood. But yeah, I've always been fascinated with how business. I love your Lori's Corner, by the way. I just want to say, because that is something when I was starting my business that, I didn't have access, to
Right,
that.
right.
I don't even think the
Yeah,
SBDC was around when I was doing this.
probably not. Yeah.
It is so complicated to navigate those waters. So I love that you put that out there. I love it. It's
Yeah.
great.
Well, I got to step back. Were your parents entrepreneurs? What made
They were not entrepreneurs. I'm trying, I have a picture behind my computer screen of my grandmother. My grandmother was my entrepreneurial, guiding light. She was, she became a nurse, and then she went and got her PhD, or almost got her PhD. I think she just left, and went on a world tour. But she started a bed and breakfast, and started buying old homes in Long Beach, California, and
Wow.
redoing them. So I was around her a lot, and I was very inspired by this idea of starting something, right? And so I would talk to her a lot about it. So my parents had no, they looked at what I did and they're like, what? Go get a job,
Yeah,
get a
yeah.
job and do that. But they've always been, ever since, been very supportive. My mom and dad invested in my first company. So they've been very supportive once they figured out what the word entrepreneur was and what it was that I was trying to accomplish.
Well, and after they invested in your first company, they're still
They had
talking
no,
with you, I'm
right.
assuming. So it went
Yes.
okay. Right, right. Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
exactly.
and
Yes.
I got to comment on grandma back in her
Mhm.
day. That was, I mean, it was great what she did
Yeah.
anyway, but back in her
Yeah.
day, that's amazing. What a great influence to have.
She was amazing. She was amazing. And I look at the pictures often when I'm struggling with something, when I'm, when you have those entrepreneurial moments where you're like, gosh, is it working? What am I doing? I look at her for just like, show me a light, show me some guidance,
Yeah.
comfort of her being there to talk with her. And now, my wife in many ways is, she's also an entrepreneur. So we spend a lot of time, maybe too much time, talking about business. So,
I don't know. I love talking about business too. I started my own company when I was about 24, 25, something like that.
wow.
But, I always tell people it wasn't via inspiration, it was due to desperation. I had
Mm.
a lot of companies I was working for, and they were smaller companies and they went under. And I got
Oh,
tired
wow.
of thinking I was at the top of my game. And then the company went out from underneath me. And the last company I went to, I was in sales at the time, told me I had to sign a non-compete, and they did count then. I was in Texas. That was many decades
Yeah.
ago. And so I sat with that paper in front of me in this desk, and I said, no. And I walked out and I started my own company after that. So that was
Wow.
really, it was more of a tragedy starting, but it did lead me down that road. And speaking of which, what is also really shocking, because everybody knows me, I've been labeled the finance guru. My
Mm.
first company was marketing, advertising
Wow.
marketing. It was,
Yes, you have been labeled. I know you are very well known as the finance and
I
the
know.
financial person, but very interesting.
Yeah.
So we share a passion there for marketing, and I'm sure you stay up on it as much as you can. You know what's going on out there. It's getting crazy.
I do. And in fact, that's why I wanted to ask you. So
Yeah.
I know you went to corporate and everything, but I'm
Hmm.
assuming you stayed within the marketing landscape during
Hmm.
most of your career. In other words, another way of saying it, you probably, like I've been able to, but more directly, sit back and go, wow,
Yeah.
what a change from, do you remember when we talked about flyers all the time
Well,
and
yes,
mail?
that was actually one of our strategies. I think at one of our
Yeah,
my first business, we were going to
yeah,
go flyers in the mall on every
yeah,
car
yeah.
that was out there. I think that was definitely a thing. And yeah, we don't really talk about that anymore. That's not
Now,
really.
No,
not a
you don't.
strategy.
No, and all you said was flyers all day long. You said flyers. And unless you're talking about frequent flyers right now, you're not saying it anymore.
Right, exactly.
Um, but at the same time, I think that, and this is one of the, we're going to launch in this, then we'll back up from that because
Yeah.
I got to talk about AI, but I'd like to launch here. When back in the days when I was doing this,
Hmm.
like you didn't have a lot of choices. The small companies couldn't afford billboards. They
Right.
couldn't afford TV. It was
Yeah.
flyers, maybe an ad in some local magazine. So
Hmm.
automatically, the entrepreneur had a level of discipline and focus because there were not so many options out there.
Yes. Yes.
Now, in your bio, you talked about digital strategy.
Yeah.
What I do find from being an observer, and or what I assume you, like I said, you can tell me if I'm off or on this, but
Hmm.
what see, because I see the financials, the entrepreneurs are kind of running around, throwing a little money here, throwing a little money here, throwing a
Hmm.
little money here, and then trying to keep up with all social media. They seem to be more scattered and also are aware of it and not quite knowing how to focus. So I think we have to use the words social media, digital marketing, whatever words we do, and we got to bring back the words discipline and strategy a bit more.
Yeah.
You just take it from there.
Yeah.
Like I said, you
Yeah.
can disagree or agree, but that's one I see as the crux.
Yeah, well, I mean, so when I started my first company, 1997, we officially launched in 1999. I was still working in a corporation. We did it as a side hustle, a couple of business partners and I. And internet was brand new. There weren't, as you said, a lot of options. So
Yeah.
pay per click hadn't even come into play yet. You were still doing maybe banner ads and things like that. And then, yes, things started to, I wouldn't say accelerate. This has been a long road to get to where we are now. But where we are now, it is, and I tell my e-commerce clients a lot, it is a build it and they will not come model out there now. You have
Love
to,
it.
yeah. I mean, we used to build it and then they would show up because there weren't a lot of sites and you
Yeah.
were a niche and you were, the powerhouse in your niche out there. But now the internet has matured. We have a lot of businesses. And this is, I want to also just preface this and say, this is not to turn anybody away from starting a business, but you must go in it with the mindset that you will have to market, if not before you launch, definitely after you launch. And it could be low to no cost marketing initiatives at first. You can, start to put some of those in place, work on search engine optimization, generative engine optimization for the AI engines out there, a lot of content marketing, a lot of social posts, but you will at some point have to start spending some money on paid ads and some of the paid strategies out there because you are competing with a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. So you just go in with that mindset, start small, start doing the low to no cost things, work with the consultants, advisors, take courses, learn from people who have done this before and work your way up. But just know that it is not one of those where we just turn on the website and hey, there we have some traffic and it's all happening. So it doesn't
You
work.
know, Ramin, and what I'm thinking you're saying, and I agree with you, and you correct me if my interpretation of what you said is not correct. Back in the day, especially when I worked in the advertising agencies, all companies knew they had to have a marketing budget, right?
Right.
Then as the internet started coming into play, I noticed people were doing business plans. I'd be like, "Where's the marketing budget? Oh, it's for free. I'm going to use all the social media." We got
Right.
to go back to the social media, maybe like you just bought your business card. You didn't say
Right.
I have a business card, you needed a flyer, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
social media is you got the business card, but you got to go back to having a marketing budget
Sure.
at some point in time and then direct it properly.
Absolutely. And it's a great point, Lori. We did think like that, right? The minute that, the internet, came into play, it was the free marketing place to go.
Right.
Well, obviously the internet and the businesses on the internet, they have business models. So their
Yeah.
business model is to make money, right? Meta is in business of making, billions and billions. Google's in the business. So those free elements were maybe the entryway into getting in there. But yes, eventually, paying in there. But I'm a big proponent on exhausting the low to no cost first. Like work on that because there are, and I read this great line the other day. We've been people have been preaching, especially in the social media space, consistent. You got to be
Yeah.
consistent, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I read this thing the other day. It was about commitment over consistency. Like, make the commitment that you're going to be in it all the time and do it. The consistency will follow. It's almost like taking, because I think consistency, unfortunately, tends to intimidate people, right? They feel like, oh my gosh, I have to be, I have to put this post, you have to post every single day because, well, yes and no, but commitment to the process is more important. So commitment to these low to no cost initiatives first before you get into paid advertising, but you will have to do some form of paid advertising to grow your digital business at some point. Just
I love what you said about commitment, and I want to go on a topic deeper into the commitment and ask your
Mhm.
opinion on this. What I heard somebody talking the other day, and I hadn't thought about it because I don't spend my time thinking about marketing, but they said if you miss post for great periods of time, people will look and then not feel as comfortable with your company because you're not as consistent. Like, where did you
Yeah.
go? Did you disappear, et cetera? So we all know commitment also needs to be reasonable. So if you say, I'm
Yes.
going to go to the gym 5 times a week, well, maybe you
Yes.
start out by
Right.
saying, I'm going to go to gym one. So could we also say that when you choose where to post, if you don't have a lot of time frame, don't choose 10, choose maybe 3 good ones and be
Yeah.
consistent with that.
100%.
So be disciplined in your choices as well.
Yes, 100%. I mean, there is this misnomer out there that we need to be everywhere. And I like to always take it back to, if you're in e-commerce, you're looking at a buyer persona. If you're in the service-based business, you're looking for your your ICP, your ideal client profile. Understand that first. I know we're going to get into AI and use AI to help build out that ideal client profile or buyer persona. But that should be your guiding light in terms of where you market, right? You don't go on to TikTok if your audience is, trending older. What's the point of it? Just because somebody told you that TikTok was the happening place. In some businesses, yes, maybe you do need to be everywhere because you're trying to reach a broad audience. But in most cases, we're trying to reach a small portion, right? A specific. So putting that buyer persona, that ideal client profile together first, that is what I encourage all my clients to do and what I work with them on, because the minute you have that, it can help you do everything, including, what does my site need to look like? You're not going to build a feminine looking site if your audience is primarily male. That's not, you're going to filter everything that you do through there. So I think back to that, the consistency side of it. I mean, listen, I have to get content out there regularly for my community. I'm trying to bring people to the community. So I look at it as there are 3 platforms that, that I have time for. Other than
Right.
that, I don't have the time to do it all. And then within the community, I only feel I have time to put out one really good piece of, actionable content per week, bring in another one workshop per month, and then a lot of small posts throughout the week to keep people engaged. Other than that, that's my commitment. That would be my commitment to my audience. If I tried to commit to 3 or 4 big posts, I'd crash. They would
Yep.
it'd
Yeah.
burn out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody about a completely different topic, but I said, I think we have to bring the word discipline back into
Yeah.
our vocabulary because it's got like this bad connotation, but it's really something that when applied to business, when applied to marketing, when applied to everything, it has
Hmm.
such an importance. Where you went with your last dialogue, you must have read my mind because this is exactly where I was going to go. Because what I was going to say is I've been, kind of giving you the easy question. So I wanted to get to the big question, and you even
Hmm.
gave a title for it, which I had not heard, the ICP, Ideal
Yeah.
Client Profile is what you
Yeah.
said, I
Hmm.
believe.
Yeah.
Because as we were saying, okay, we got to be consistent. We got to keep our commitment. That means we got to choose a few. Of
Hmm.
course, that comes, how do we choose? And I'll tell you what, once again, what I see on the other side. I see people using the strategy that large corporations must use. I think you'll know what I'm talking about. They're having to grow by stealing market share. Okay. So they're
Hmm.
going to look at, we need women between the age of 25 and 45, and they have these big, huge profiles. I remind entrepreneurs that the coolest thing about you, you don't need 2 million in sales to make money.
Right.
So it's much smaller and more targeted. And I
Hmm.
don't think they always think that way because they're emulating corporate blogs, corporate media, corporate
Right.
stuff. They emulate that.
Yeah.
So To our small people, what
Yeah.
can they do to start getting better with the ICP? Now I'm cool, I'm
Mhm.
using the
Yeah.
acronym to make sure that they're spending their money targeted, they're taking their time consistent, and they're doing it in a committed fashion. How do we bring that all together?
Yeah, I think, well, first, we absolutely do the ICP first. We put that together, we fully understand it. And it could be a living, breathing document because it will change over time. You'll get to know your audience better and realize, oh, maybe I was a little off on this particular, but we're making some assumptions. We're also doing some research to figure out, if that audience. But once we have that, then we're looking, and I love the word discipline and commitment because it's so easy these days to be all over the place and not have any of that. Is to start, all right, where are they? Okay, let's look at, are they, if they're on Instagram and Facebook, great. Most likely, let's call it Instagram and TikTok. Okay. I'm going to put my energy there. But what does that mean? What does my energy mean? So let me understand the platforms first. Let me make sure I understand, spend time. I see a lot of rushing happening, like, oh, I got to go do this really quickly. I got to spin up the store and I got to be over here. But why not take some time and study TikTok properly? Understand, find the people find the people that are similar to you, maybe doing some, and follow them. See what they're posting. Generally they're going to be probably smaller businesses. Maybe there'll be some bigger businesses. I tend to like to look at other small businesses because, as you said, big businesses are doing things very differently. Sort of like a spray it out there and see what happens
They
approach.
can't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they can. They don't worry about the money. But if I need to be very focused, I'm going to learn the platform before I do anything on the platform. But then once I've learned how the platform operates, what I need to put out there, then I'm going to start looking at what I already have in terms of content. What can I do to create content? It's all about getting content out there, right? Putting that value-based content, right? That's what I always tell entrepreneurs, value-based content. Don't just put, cute pictures of your product and things like that. Nobody cares. I'll be honest with you. No, they want to get something out. They will care about your brand and your products if you give them value. So value is, if you are, for example, you mentioned Ashley, right? She's coming on onto the pod. I've worked with Ashley, putting out that content recipe wise, like give away a recipe. Most people are not going to go make her cakes. She does an exceptional job
Yeah.
at making them, but what if I had the opportunity to get access to some recipes, or maybe something that she hasn't made and she's giving away some ideas, or what to do with her cakes after you've, maybe you've consumed, maybe you put them into a milkshake and you turn it into this amazing, that level of content I wanted. So I'm going to structure it out, but I'm going to think about, and this is where AI is, without AI, I don't even know how we got this far. It is now a game changer in so many ways to help us create the ideas, the brainstorming ideas around the content, and then to actually create the content. Now, if you're doing like TikTok and you're doing Instagram Reels, you're not, you're going to have to come up with, video related content but still AI is going to help you come up with that. So ICP, study the platform, figure out which platforms you want to, need to be on, study the platforms, start to create the game plan, the master game plan for all the content you're going to put out there. And then I like to use, honestly, these days, in terms of getting the content out there, since we're trying to do so much, I go to platforms like Hopper HQ, Metricool, Later, some of these social media management tools that help me get it out there. And there's some controversy around whether, those are, but they've been around a long time and they plug into the social media platform. So you can plan out a whole month's worth of content on a calendar inside of, Hopper HQ or Metricool, and schedule it. So now I'm scheduling it. I'm letting that information go out there. But here's the thing is you got to still stay, it's not set it and forget it. You got to go back in. You're going to get comments. You're going to get likes, be interactive, with your audience. And that's where you're also going to learn about your ICP. Am I attracting the right type of person? Did I filter this correctly through my ICP? What adjustments do I need to make? And I think, Laura, what I'll say is that, this notion that people have, marketing is going to fix, marketing is a big test. That is really all marketing is at the end of the day. We're testing, we're trying different things. If it's not working, let it go, move on to the next thing. Just continuously keep building and growing. If you find the winning formula, by all means, you stick with it and you go all in. Keep pushing it. And, I'm being very, I'm not giving absolute specifics here, but it really, ICP trickles down to everything else, and I'm building a plan, and then I'm making a commitment that I'm going to push that content out. And I'm going to put that value-based content out there. And I'm not going to talk about my brand of, like, oh, come look at my products, look at this, look at that. I'm going to go all in on giving my customer the value that they deserve, because there's a lot of content out there, and work from there and get comments and feedbacks, and then rinse and repeat.
Okay, you gave me so much to work with. I already know that you're going to be coming back because I'm going to I'm not going to get through all my questions. So I have so much that you said, but I have to go back to the very beginning. So we
Okay.
talked about ICP
Mm-hmm.
being where they are. We talked
Yeah.
about knowing the platform. I want
Mm-hmm.
to ask a fundamental question first,
Yeah.
because I feel like many don't get this right.
Mhm.
Who are they?
Yeah. Well, the ICP is part of who they are. I think
Yeah.
that's
What can
defining the
people
who.
do to ask who they are better? Because I feel like,
Yeah.
you talked about rushed, Ramin. I
Yeah.
feel like when you ask an entrepreneur who's your ideal customer, they go into this like zombie and they start reciting something. And sometimes I think they
Yeah.
don't think. Is there some key questions they could audit them? I'm a finance person. We
Yeah.
audit. Oh, yeah,
Sure.
we audit. I feel like a lot of people are chasing customers that are not necessarily their ideal customer from can
Yeah.
pay, want to pay, has the ability to pay, likes the product, isn't going to compete price on them because entrepreneurs can't get in price wars. You know what I'm saying by
Yeah.
all this?
Yeah. 100%. Well, one thing I do immediately is look internally. A lot of times you are your own ICP. You are your own ideal client profile, because you started this business, and not always, not in every situation, but sometimes you started this business out of frustration for something that you couldn't find in the marketplace, right? This was driving you crazy, and I need to get this, and nobody has it. So I'm going to build it myself, or create it myself, or put out that content myself. That's usually the first place. But then I look around me too. Listen, we're human beings. The ideas that we come up with, the business ideas we come up with, are derived from our environment, our the people we know, the places we already go to shop, and things like that. So I really think if you sit down with yourself first, and have that internal discussion with yourself, you'll find that you probably have a lot of the answers to your ideal client profile, or your buyer persona if it's on the
Right.
e-com side of things.
Yep. Yep.
But that, again, that's one place I would start. Secondly, I would honestly, you want to do that research in there to figure out. You used a great word, pay. Is somebody already paying for something that I'm already, that I'm thinking about doing? This idea, there's a 4-tip validation process that I came across. I'm happy to share it. I'll share it with you afterwards. You can pass it along, but there is a validation, and number one is, are people willing to pay for it? So once you determine who this ICP is, if it comes from you and you're able to put it together, the next question is, are people willing to pay for it? If nothing like it exists, all right, it's going to be a little harder to figure it out. But if there are similar ideas, you're now doing research. This is where I'm pulling up Perplexity AI, and I'm going in there and asking questions, because it cites sources and it brings me back a lot of data that I may not be able to do on my own. And I can start to see, oh yeah, look, there is an actual market out there. If
Yeah.
there is no market out there, I would pause. I would honestly pause. And again, if it's a brand new idea and nobody's ever done it before, that's a different thing. And I don't want to discourage anybody because so many amazing ideas have been created in this country and around the world because somebody said, I don't care what you say, I'm going to build it anyway.
Yeah.
But we don't want to discourage anybody, but I do always want people to pause before they move on to validation. Look around and see if somebody's paying for something similar to what you are going to do.
Very important point. In fact, I was going to go down with a couple questions in content, but I want to put a question ahead of time based on what you said. So I want to comment on two things and then throw something out there. And this is a chance for me to speak on my little soapbox for a second.
Okay,
So I will
sure.
accept that that's what I'm
Go
doing.
for
First,
it.
on in old marketing times, because we're showing our age here, I am, is that like when people first came out with a cell phone, they don't realize that people first said, why do I even need a cell phone? So the early to market person is got to teach the market the behaviors, which is very costly. So
Mhm.
people think first to market is good. No, sometimes third to fourth to market, because then you've got a marketplace that already believes there's a need. So
That's
that's
right.
coming back to what you said, but that wasn't my point. That was my soapbox. So here's my point.
Mhm.
So often, and this is what I do on a daily basis with SBDC clients,
Mhm.
I find, and Brad, you know Brad, he's asked
Of
me one
course.
time, what is the percentage of entrepreneurs that you meet with? Because I'm all about the financials that are not profitable. And I said to
Mhm.
him, probably about 85%. He goes, no, no,
Wow.
Lori. I said, not. I said, yes. And I said, 85%.
Mhm.
It's because they are not truly doing the right mathematical equation to determine their profitability.
Sure.
Now, where I'm going into this in the marketing end is
Mhm.
explain to them that what the marketers do a lot, you would never do this, but the marketers do this, is they go out and they say, well, let's see how much your competitors are charging and let's put you right here.
Mhm.
Well, that's fine, that makes sense, but the
Yeah.
entrepreneur then has to go back and say, is that financially feasible for me in my business cost structure to sell it at that amount? And back in my olden days, especially with bigger companies, the
Mhm.
CFO told the company how much it had to be sold for. The hired
Mhm.
marketing team had to be clever and create the marketing material to
Right.
support that price. Where I feel like a lot of financial decisions regarding selling prices today are being
Mhm.
run by the marketer to the
Yes.
disadvantage. And I'm not on the marketer, the entrepreneur is the one that's got to be on top of this, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Right.
we've turned it where the marketers are making the financial decisions. And I
Mhm.
think that they're not being as clever as they were years ago. I remember the best story was a company that was selling tuna fish. It was number one. It suddenly lost all the market share because another company came into town selling tuna fish that had a light pink color and people thought it was fresher. So they
Mhm.
hired this big marketing agency, and the marketing agency turned it around. They did one ad, they put the name of the company, and they said, guaranteed not to turn pink.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting point. When I joined the first company I worked for, um, I was in the marketing department, and there was no discussion of finance. There was
Right.
nothing. They were just big ideas. Let's do this. Let's do that. Then a new management team came in, and they came from the world of Procter and Gamble, and they came from that they basically on day one, Ramin, I need you to create a spreadsheet based on and show me the 3-year, the 5-year, and 10-year projection if we do this plan the way it is. And all of a sudden, I was thrown. I've never even used Excel ever in my life at that point, but I was thrown into this world where marketers were making decisions based on financial data, right? But they were making the ultimate decision, but they were using,
Yeah.
there's data out there, right?
Right.
And
Right.
I mean, I don't want to overcomplicate it for, for entrepreneurs because we're all feel like, we've trying to wear so many hats, but really you must, in that early days when you're building a business, you must do the validation, you must run the numbers, you must then go back and look at the number. With every client that I work with on the e-commerce side of things, every month when we meet, we look at the numbers. We look at the analytics because the analytics will tell you everything you need to know. Are you hitting your ICP correctly? Are you spending, are you overspending on marketing, and what's your return look like? Where could what do your landing pages look like? How much traffic is coming to these pages? What's your conversion rate? All these things that I think a lot of entrepreneurs, obviously, I get why, you look at those and, like, oh my gosh, this is scary, but they will tell you where to go. They will guide you and get an advisor. And an advisor, the SBDC is a fantastic,
Yep. It is.
resource, will help you guide you to look at those numbers and not be scared about them, but help you make better decisions as you start to move into growth phase in your business.
Yep, absolutely. And this is another good spot for me to make a shout out to the audience because I haven't mentioned this yet. Ramin is a fellow advisor at the SBDC. His
Yes.
information is going to the chat. You can have a one-on-one with him and
Yeah,
talk to him about this personally. You know,
absolutely.
and I agree on the ROI, and what I do is I make them tie it back to the net income because during especially COVID, people increased their sales. They did it
Hmm.
at a discount. They ended up what I call is my line, more tired and more broke. I'm like, you're just going to
Yeah.
be more tired because it's not always a sales problem. So a lot of times it has to do with not selling at the right sales price for selling
Yeah.
price. So you end up increasing sales. You don't get anywhere because we're not manufacturers where the 10th widget
Right.
is less.
Yeah.
You end up more tired and more broke. Now, I wanted to come back to the value-based content. You said some
Yeah.
interesting things. You used the example of the free recipe. And I have to say, for me, not being in it, I remember when just having content was good enough. Then it was, oh,
Hmm.
they got to get to know you. And then, oh, you got to have pretty pictures. Oh, no, you have to put some information, but don't put too much information. Oh, yep, you should put information. I honestly don't even know what value-based content is anymore. And I gotta
Yeah.
believe in the audience, I may not be the only one. Can you tell
Yeah.
us a little more
Yeah.
about what value-based content is for today?
Absolutely. And that's an interesting timeline there. I mean, that is kind of exactly how it's all
Yeah,
played out. I think at the end of the day, the way I look at value-based content is, am I, I mean, in the simplest word, am I giving value? And I'm not necessarily talking about putting a lot of information, a teaser that can lead to something where somebody can read. Let's take an example. A big part of search engine optimization and generative engine optimization, now GEO, has always been content creation, right? Creating blog content mainly, right? Well optimized blog content. Okay, so but a lot of times people just write about their business. They write about their products. That's not value based. That to
right.
me is, unless your product is so absolutely amazing and nothing like that has ever been seen in our lifetime. Okay, maybe there's a little value there, but it's more about, again, look at your ICP and build content around it. Okay, so if I am, I'm trying to think of, all right, if I'm in the men's grooming business, okay, and I'm
Okay.
selling, face washes and exfoliating creams and lotions and all these different things, I'm not going to get out there. There's a great company out there that Baxter of California, that I buy from and I follow. They put value-based content. They teach you how to shave. Okay.
Oh, okay. I
Right.
get what you're going. Okay. Yep.
So that's value-based content, really short clips. And they were doing this early on, where they're showing the technique to shave and then the technique of putting lotion on. By the way, all my life, I've been putting lotion in my hand and doing this and just like rubbing like this. No,
That's
it's a
right.
dot, 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 and then you rub it in. I'm like,
There we
what?
go. We got special learning on
Like,
this show.
oh my God,
See?
amazing, right? So I'm thinking about that, and that's absolutely amazing. We've got another client through the SBDC. She's wonderful. She has shoes, fashion-based shoes that are for women with larger sized feet. So her value-based content is, and I challenged her on this. I said, I wonder how many people wear the wrong size shoe. Well, it turns out that I think it's a third of men wear the wrong size shoe, and half of women in America wear the wrong size for whatever reason. Some of it's vanity, some of it's, they were never measured correctly. But you have people going in now to running stores, right, and getting your feet,
Right.
electronically measured. So she wrote an article about that because it's value based. She's talking to her ICP. Her
Yep.
ICP, they have bigger size feet, and they're probably very self-conscious, and they may have gone down a couple sizes. She's saying it's okay. It's okay to be, but look how many people are just like you. Let's get the right shoe size. And here's how you do it, by the way. She actually literally said, even if you don't buy from this store, they have a great way of measuring. You think you can go into CVS stores and sometimes get your feet measured on those Dr. Scholl machines, things like that. That to me is value-based content. She is not directly promoting her product. She is specifically giving them value in there. Sure, there are links in the blog. And sure, and she took
Right.
that blog, by the way, and she's now repurposing that blog into social clips. She's taking it into AI and commanding AI to create 10 social clips, give me ideas for reels, she's a Instagram and TikTok type of place. Give me that additional repurposed content so I don't have to create kill myself on the work level here. But that's value. Now she's got value-based content that's out there. And I think that to me is the best way to approach content. Plus, it'll open up so many ideas for new
Yeah.
content that you didn't have before.
I like that. And so thank you for those because now I have more of a feel for. So what I understand is here's your product or service, and these are the topics. I'm just going to say them
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
are really up against your product and service. I get shaving cream. How do I use it properly? I buy
Yeah.
shoes. How do I measure correctly? So
Right.
you're actually addressing, which makes me feel more comfortable with the company because it's showing the intellectual side of the company in their
Yes.
product. So they're
And,
thinking
and
through.
And let me just take it one step further, is that
Yeah,
just keeping in mind the way AI engines work, okay? Generative AI, Google included, because obviously it has Gemini and now you have AI mode and you had AI overview, but ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, they're all looking for answers to questions that people have. People are we don't put keywords,
Okay.
we don't use keywords anymore. We use questions, right? Because we're on the go, we're thinking about things, and we're in whatever AI tool. Most people are like shifting over to ChatGPT and Perplexity and not using Google as much, which is why Google is accelerating their AI. But we're asking the questions. So if you can figure out the questions, a great tool out there, by the way, is Answer the Public. A phenomenal tool that you can literally see the questions that people are asking as they relate to searches that are being done out there. And then you can take that and create content out of it. Content, like thousands of content ideas can come out of this. So I would encourage people to not think as much about keywords as much. I mean, it's still a relevant thing. We're not shutting that down, but start thinking about the questions that people are asking around your product, create value-based content around that, and maybe create one thing and turn it into many things in the repurposing model and push that out to your audience out there, and then track it, watch it, and see how it does, because we're making some bets here that we're
Yeah.
correct, but we may not be 100% right all the time.
I like that. That's fascinating to me because you're right. You wonder something, and now every time you speak into even Siri, it's in a question
Yeah,
format.
exactly.
Everything we do is in a question. So I want you to just slowly. So Sadie, be on the here for this. Say those three things that you
Sure.
said they can use to ask a question, so Sadie can put it in the chat for our
Absolutely. So
audience.
Answer the Public tool out there. Pay. You can get a free. You can try the free version and see that. I would start to put questions into ChatGPT. I mean, you're not going to get. You're not going to get. You start to see the results now, by the way, in ChatGPT of similar questions that people are asking. If you use perplexity.ai, the one of the other tools out there, it's a little more search engine based, and it also then shows related topics down below. If you are in, not even if you have a website and you've had it for a long time, I would absolutely get Google Search Console connected. It's a free tool by Google. That starts to show queries that people use to find your business, and Google starts to show that. That's going to give you inspiration for content and also how to market. I mean, literally, if you found the right question that people were asking, and that was the headline of your blog, and then that
Yeah.
was utilized in all of the marketing, you have a far better chance of advancing your marketing initiatives than you would if you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall, as they say. And I don't know
Yeah.
what people are asking. Let's just try it out. I will say, I just like to tell my kids this all the time, and I tell everybody else out there, it never, at least in my history, has it been, it's the most exciting time to be in business. The
Yeah. I
opportunities
agree.
that are available, the tools, almost there's so many tools you can't even keep track of them. I'll tell you these today, tomorrow, there could be 10 more that pop up. But never in our lifetime have we had this much information available and so many opportunities to succeed in business, from the marketing and the launch to financial, to access to advisors to help you along the way, to all that amazing AI on there. I think it's an amazing time. And I think I challenge everybody, but use it correctly and dig deep with it.
I fully agree. And I say that, when I first had my company, I had to rent a place with shag carpeting and buy an answering service because you had to have somebody answer
Right.
the phone, right? And now you
Uh-huh.
can go in Starbucks and say, hold on and order your lunch.
That's right.
I
That's
do
right.
agree. It is just and the access to information, it's just phenomenal times. Now, what's interesting is Brenda wrote exactly, you guys are reading my mind today because I was just about to ask you this same question and I was going to get into it. By the way, before I do, Ramin, you get the award today. I have not had a guest on give it so many names of things that I don't have a background of familiarity. I don't know about you guys, but I'm learning a lot today because I
I
don't even know the things you're talking about. That's why I'm like, Sadie, take notes, put it in the chat. But here's where I want to go, and it's where Brenda's going. And I want to tell a very quick story is that when I always been a consultant, right? And I was walking through a Costco many moons ago, and I
Mm,
watched this person set up this table to give samples of brownies, right? And immediately everybody's buying the brownies, and I'm like, I wish
yeah.
I could do samples. And then I realized I sell intellect. I can package intellect. I can
Yes.
do all things. When I understood that I sold intellect, that's when I started doing public speaking. That's when I started doing
Hmm.
writing it. And that's what blogs are. So I think service-based businesses sell intellect, but there's a trick to packaging a sample of intellect in your content, just like there's
Correct.
a trick to packaging the right cookie in the right amount. Can you
Right.
speak to that? And Brenda, you were
Sure.
reading my mind because I was already, you saw that question was in the brain of my queue. So go for it.
Yeah. So, all right. So, I much like you, I have a podcast as well, the E-commerce Revolution podcast, and I'll give you the example of kind of how I do this. Back in the day, maybe 3 or 4 years ago when I first started, and then we took a break, and I kind of changed the model around it before we relaunched it. I didn't think with the end in mind. So now I think with the end in mind. My
Yeah.
questions to my and we do at the moment we do recorded. We'll probably go to live. I love this live concept. I think it's great. A lot of good things come out of it. But I think that, I look at the questions that I'm going to ask with the idea of, can this turn into interesting content that will show my intellect, my community's intellect, what we, who we are, what we do, and what we can provide you with on your e-commerce journey. And hopefully the guests will answer. Sometimes they don't get the perfect answer in there, but then I'm packaging those up into clips. I do about 10 to 12 social clips. AI helps me generate those clips, and they're ready for Instagram, they're ready for TikTok and LinkedIn, et cetera. But very deliberate in that, because I want to give them a taste of the information that they can get. Then they can go consume the bigger piece of it if they want to, or maybe they get enough out of it where it's quick and it's easy. We had Deborah Darris on, who she
Yep.
came on the podcast, and she had this great, that TikTok is flipping the script, and Deborah's very good at, putting the right, it's almost like what back in the day, like politicians would do. What are those words? They would use those, those sound bites, right? They would get these
Sound bites. Yep.
right.
Yep.
So she, and maybe not deliberately, but she just naturally puts it out there.
Yep.
Is flipping the script. TikTok has flipped the script on what social media should look like. You don't need to worry about your Instagram grid anymore. Okay, it's gone. Stop staring at it and making it look so pretty. Get the content out there. Put the content out there. And I look at that as like, I asked the question, she put the content. Now the combined intellect of what is now out there, and that's how we package it up and send it out there. Within all the content that you're creating, long form, there's gold in it. Okay, there's
Yep.
gold in that content. You just need to spend some time, and I think maybe just not a whole lot of time, because AI is actually very good at figuring out what is good in your content and repurposing it for you.
Yeah, and this leaves us, we don't, I'm already going to have you back on it. I think what I'm going to do is
Love
see if
to.
you want to come on the Ask a Expert series, because like I said, I'm launching that in September, and my goal is to really dance around a topic in so many different ways that it's really intriguing. So we're going to look at it, and AI is one of them that I wanted to look at. So what I'd like to do in the remaining time, which I know
Yeah.
we're just dabbling, we're not even jumping in it because we don't have the time, but we'll expand
So much
upon
to talk about, Lori. So much in this
so
world.
much to talk about. I know. So, with like, let's talk about just Chat GPT as an
Yeah.
example right now.
Mhm.
I'm going to go back to, I remember, because that's, how old I am, when the first Macintosh came out, and it
Oh
was
yeah, I've got a
replacing.
picture of my old. I still have it in my
Yeah.
room. My
Yeah.
dad won't let me get rid of it.
But that was the founding of my first company, because what happened is the Mac was eventually replacing the hand-drawn
Yeah.
advertising agency. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
There was a period of time, though, when the Mac wasn't really able to do it yet, but people were taking and creating subpar designs because they got to do it on a Mac. And I kept saying that if we use technology just for technology's sake, meaning just to say we use the technology, we're not being the human brain. We're not saying, well, this is a new tool and how does it apply?
Mhm.
So I personally, just my opinion, I have a big issue with people using ChatGPT to ask what legal structure or what government documents. I get it all the time. And I'm like, no,
Right.
don't do that. But it's a great tool, especially for understanding things such as you've been speaking about.
Yeah.
So I'm going to create two weird questions
Okay.
combined, knowing we're dabbling, and let you
Okay.
go with it. Um, it seems to me, and this is, I'm not not an expert on AI. I'm not even knowledgeable AI. Let's put me in the ignorant of AI
Okay.
category
All
as I say
right.
this, okay?
Okay.
But to me, AI is still a learning model from
Mm.
other aspects. It's not AI, it's just a learning model. It's
Mhm.
taking
Yeah.
information from other places and
Large language.
right.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
learning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's learning. It's learning. It's not creating new. It's just telling you what is already out there and maybe
Yes.
organizing it Well, yes, organize
Faster than you
it
could,
faster
right?
than I
Yeah.
could, right?
Yeah.
But I think we have to be very clear that we're just getting a bunch of little bits of pieces of information
Yes.
it's gathering. Now, I think it's a great tool in application, and I can see in your application it's perfect
Mhm.
because it's going out and saying, what is everybody else is saying? What is my client saying? What are these people? It's gathering all this, and I
Yeah.
see that's why it's so valuable because it's really as if it is a huge free survey. Remember how much money the
Yeah.
Coca-Cola and stuff would do for surveys?
Yeah.
AI in what we're speaking of seems like it is a huge survey and feedback mechanism, but it
Mhm.
still needs human intellect and reasoning, even in your situation. I could be right or wrong. You let me know, but take it on that.
Yes.
The question is, how do you think AI is best used in
Mhm.
your world?
Absolutely. So human in the loop is
Human
a
loop.
term that's used out there, and I preach it. I live it. I use it to create my podcast script and all the content. I use it as a writing partner primarily, as a even with financials, by the way, not IRS, nothing sensitive, but I put like if I wanted to analyze some numbers out of out of the platform to just see how we're doing in particular
Oh, that
areas.
makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I use it in that sense. I remain in. There are some chats that go on an hour. I'm in it back and forth, because as a solopreneur, and many of the people on this on the call today are probably in that neighborhood where they don't have a lot of people to speak to. Right? They have an advisor. They may consult with a few people there, but it's me, myself, and I. So
Yep. Yep.
I'm in there and I use it in, I iterate with it. I go back and forth with it. Sometimes I'll leave a chat and I'll come back to the chat later on. So that's why it's important to know how to set up Chat GPT or Claude or any of these correctly, making sure, you also tell it, don't use my information to learn. You can turn that feature off, but set up projects. Like I've got a project for everything that I do, and I go back and forth in those. So stay in the loop, because one, we don't want our brains to go to mush. We want to be
Right.
involved in this.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know what it looks like 5 years from now. Maybe 5 years now we're walking around like zombies. Who knows? And we're just like it's doing its thing, and building our lives, and planning our vacations and all that kind of stuff. But we use it that my wife she uses it in her business a lot. She then also started to plan our summer trip. It's okay at some things. It's getting better. The new agent model is now added in there. But I would just say, Lori, back to this, is that the idea comes from here. It is nowhere else. But AI does not have that idea. It needs to be kickstarted by
Yep.
you. So if you're just going to kickstart it and then just walk away, I encourage you not to. I encourage you to stay involved in the chat, be there. And I've found it to make mistakes. Last night, I was having it trying to build this complicated social media, distribution model for me, and it just wasn't doing anything. And it finally apologized to me and said, it literally said, Ramin, I am so sorry I've let you down. I am unable to create the transcripts that you need. I am going to bow out of this. Please come back to me at some other point when you have more information to work with. I'm like, well, first of all, I was a little blown away by the comment. I'm like, okay, I feel like we're friends. Yes, I don't know what's going on here, but I think that's had I not stayed in the loop, I would have just sat there and thought to myself, well, I'll just take whatever it just gave me. This must be
Right.
perfect. Don't do that.
I love the human in the loop, and this is I before I end with I got to tell you this. So I sometimes use Siri for comedy. I have to admit that I do, right? So the other day, like I'll be in the middle, I need a joke, right? So the other day I said, "Hey Siri," oh, I'm gonna say that now. Siri, don't I didn't mean to. I
Everybody's
didn't
phones
mean
have
to.
gone
I'm
off.
gonna go, "Hey," and I
Yeah.
said, "What is the meaning of life?" And
Ah.
so responded and said, well, some people say it was to build the three-wheel tricycle, and it's already been done, so we're good.
Oh, I love it. See, I love that kind of humor. When AI throws you for a loop, you're expecting some magical, piece of information that's going to forever change your life. But yeah, I've had a lot of people, by the way, come on the podcast, and I do ask that question in, how do you use AI? And people have given me some very spiritual approaches, especially entrepreneurs who are, in that frustrated mindset, 11 o'clock at night. Oh my God, what am I doing again? You always have those moments as an entrepreneur. They're going to ChatGPT because their husband is asleep, their kids are asleep. And what else is there? There's this thing that's 24/7 ready to talk to you. So
My God, that is hilarious. Well, Ramin, I have thoroughly enjoyed having you on the show.
likewise,
I'm already committing you to be back on. I
I'll be
think I'd
back.
love to go through the Ask Us Expert where we really delve into AI.
Love to.
I have, by the way, I've been trying to get a lawyer to come on here to talk about copyright infringement on
I've got
AI.
one for you, Lori. I've got a guy for
Yes,
you.
nobody would. I keep announcing in this show. I have had people turn me down. I've asked for, and nobody will come on my live show to
I,
discuss this with me.
I had a gentleman on. He had done some work with SBC. I'll send you his name. Great
Send
guy,
it to me.
phenomenal guy. So much information. Like at the end, I was like, "Whoa, content overload. We have so much to work with."
Oh, that's great because I
Yeah,
have been wanting, I've reached out and not got one. So that is great. But thank you so much because I feel like
my
we had
pleasure.
a wonderful general conversation where we tiptoed around so many
Yeah,
topics. But, it just really proved to me how much I don't know. I'm staying in my own lane. Remember talking
yeah.
at the beginning? I'm
Right. The
staying in my
lanes,
own
man.
lane. I'm finance, tax, and legal structures. That's it. That's all
Well,
I
I'm learning from Lori's corner, so I'm with you there. I'm gonna follow that. I appreciate. Thank you very much for having me on. This has been an absolute pleasure. I love talking about it. Let's dive deeper onto the next one. There's so much out there. We can go whatever direction you want to go. Your show. You tell me. I'm happy to come on and continue the conversation.
So I say to everybody, please go in the chat, get Ramin's information, make an appointment. It's your tax dollars at work, like they say with the
Right.
SEC. So you get a great opportunity to sit down and talk. Anything else you want to leave last words with the audience today?
I just go back to, it's the greatest time to be in business. I encourage my kids, think about, who knows what the world looks like in, I don't even, 5 years is way too long. Maybe it's 1 year. What does it look like,
Yeah.
with all this amazing technology? But, use it properly, you stay involved in your business, be the human in the loop in everything that you do. Seek the guidance from advisors who have done it before, who have failed and succeeded. All of that is very important information, and just keep pushing and make a commitment to building the business in all of these different areas. And I guess that's our word, discipline and commitment is maybe the central theme here, is that's how you build a business. It really is. I mean, there's a lot of details. There's no doubt about that. And it's hard, but commitment and discipline to where you're going is going to get you there.
I agree. People hear me say this on the show a lot. Intelligence is great. Love it. Love to get more of it. But what really matters to me now is wisdom. And you
Yeah.
just spoke some great wisdom. So thank you so
Well, I
much.
appreciate that.
So I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
bring Sadie back in. As you know, guys, Sadie will stay behind. She'll make sure that you get all the information into the chat. Sadie, we're not being replaced by AI yet, I don't think, because hey guys, is Sadie and I gonna be replaced yet, or are we still meaning something to you? Look at there, we got in the chat. Never.
Right,
Yay.
right.
Yes.
Oh, here's
By the way,
Hey, that's why we got that survey up, Lori. I'm like, hey, we got to do a survey. We got to be the humans in there because we got to keep
yeah.
bringing this material to you guys. And we got an
Yeah.
advisor over here. So we got to,
Or a
I'm
plumber.
just doing
Plumbers and
plugs now.
electricians too, by the way, will not ever be replaced.
They won't. They won't.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
did we do good on content creation today? Did we do value based content today?
I think you did. I mean, I'm a little biased, I guess, somehow in this mix, but yes, I think you did.
Think so too. Everybody says yes in the chat. Yes, we're
Thank you.
going anywhere. Look, I feel good. Oh, and my regulars are out there. Emma, Brenda, Petra, all you guys. Thank you so much. Okay, I ran over as always, so we got to go. So I have to say thank you again for coming on today.
Absolutely.
Sadie staying later to get information or contact with me or anything you need. And thank you again for watching
Thank you.
Small Biz Talk with your host, Lori Williams, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Take care.
Bye, everyone. Alrighty, guys, I am here. Do not worry. I put in lots of links in there for you. So you let me know if it scrolled by too fast in the chat for you. I still got the survey going on Because as we said, we got to give information. Do we love this content? Do we want to see more of it? We got to let the powers that be know that this is a service that you folks find informative and helpful for your small business. Contact the SPDC if you are not a client. As you can see, we have amazing business advisors, and this is a no-cost service for you provided through your tax dollars, folks. So please contact us, become a client.